This chart tracks global GDP rankings, and currently, India's growth is accelerating its pace. In 2025, the country pushed past Japan to become the world's fourth largest economy at $4.19 trillion. By 2028, projections show it overtaking Germany to claim the number 3 spot. But extending this timeline to 2047, the scale of the Viksit Bharat target becomes clear. Reaching a $30 trillion GDP means expanding the national economy by 9 times its current size. That goal introduces a strict mathematical requirement. Reaching the 2047 figure requires the country to maintain an 8% annual growth rate for 22 consecutive years. Climbing global ranks as a byproduct of current momentum is very different from multiplying the nation's physical and industrial output by 9. It requires a different economic engine. To understand why India has a unique window to build this engine, we have to look at China. For decades, China operated the world's most powerful industrial engine, but that growth is now slowing as the country faces a rapidly aging workforce. India commands a different structural advantage. By 2047, the country will field a working age population of 112 crore. The median age of the workforce will be 37 years old. China's demographic dividend is in the past. India's peak is still approaching. A population of this scale is a necessary catalyst, but the workforce volume alone cannot generate $30 trillion unless the state changes the nature of what those workers produce. In July 2024, Niti Aayog released an approach paper serving as a mathematical blueprint for this transition. This model outlines aggressive sector rebalancing. Agriculture currently accounts for 20% of GDP. The blueprint shrinks it back to 12% to absorb transitioning workers. Manufacturing must expand, driving industrial production from 15 to 25%. For India, this is a historical challenge. The primary growth engine has traditionally been services, which generates over half the GDP. Industrial production has never played the leading role. Reaching the target means re-engineering the system to force manufacturing to take center stage, a shift that alters the physical landscape of Indian industry. Building those factories exposes another structural hurdle. India cannot reach $30 trillion while half the population remains underutilized. Currently, the female labor force participation rate is 37%. NET Aayog prints set the target at nearly double that, participation over 70%. But a larger workforce requires a massive expansion of the tools and spaces they use. In macroeconomics, building factories, roads, and power grids is measured as capital formation. To physically accommodate a 9-fold economic expansion, capital formation must increase from 24% of GDP to 32%. Reaching $30 trillion relies on a simultaneous doubling of both the active female workforce and the physical infrastructure budget, a coordinated structural pivot of the entire national system. That infrastructure push faces a financial reality. NET Aayog calculates that to keep the 2047 economic goals aligned with India's 2070 net zero commitments, the country requires $22.7 trillion specifically for the energy transition. This visualization layers in the capital requirements and reveals a critical vulnerability, a calculated $6.5 trillion financing gap that the current domestic economy cannot cover. The formula to overtake China's industrial output is logical on paper, but the system currently lacks the internal capital required to begin the transition. To close that investment gap, the blueprint demands a specific macroeconomic shift, forcing the share of private consumption to drop from 60% to 52% of GDP. This means ordinary citizens will have to restrict their immediate spending, routing personal wealth into domestic savings to fund national investment. This is the price of the blueprint. It trades a percentage of today's personal spending for the capacity to build a 9 times larger economy. Demographic momentum alone will not defeat the Chinese economic model. Success depends on a generational sacrifice, a mathematical trade-off where present comfort is traded for the physical construction of the $30 trillion future.